Well, welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining me once again. My name is Lior Samfiru. I'm the employment lawyer. I'm also one of the founding partners of Samfiru Tumarkin LLP. You can find us in Ontario, in BC, and in Alberta, of course. And if you have a question or an issue dealing with employment law, boy, are you in the right place. This is the time, this is a place where we get all those questions answered, where we get all those problems solved. If you're on your own, trying to figure out what the law says, what your rights are. You don't need to worry about that anymore. On this session, live here, you can ask me the question. You can ask me what the law says. You can ask me what your rights are. You can ask me if what your employer is doing is legal. All that and much, much more. Ask right now. This is live with me, Lior Samfiru, the employment lawyer, wanting to answer all those questions. Maybe you have a question about that severance package that you're staring at because you just lost your job. Maybe you're worried about losing your job. You want to know if that's even legal. Maybe you're on probation. You want to know what that means. Maybe you're not being treated properly, or maybe your job has changed. I think you get the idea. If it's employment law related, if it has to do with your job, with your workplace, this is the time, this is the place where you can get questions answered live right now. Again, I'm Lior Samfiru. Now, before I get started answering questions, let me give you some contact information. If you want to connect with me and my team off social media, you want to have a private discussion, a private email exchange, here's what you do. You just go to employmentlawyer.ca right there, employmentlawyer.ca. When you go there, you'll see the phone numbers are all there. The email address is there. If you prefer to have a form filled out, then we'll call you. It's all there for you if you want. Again, employmentlawyer.ca. And when you go there, of course, you can also read up a lot more and learn a lot more about your employment law rights. So kind of your one-stop resource, that's employmentlawyer.ca. But right now, 30 minutes or so, I am here live for you. Questions are coming in already. Ask your question. Last month or so, every time I do this, we're getting a lot of questions, which is fantastic. But sometimes we run out of time and I don't get to answer all of them. Right now, you have plenty of time. You can guarantee to have your question answered. All you have to do is ask it. There's a little box on the screen. You can type in your question, hit enter, and it will pop up on my screen. I'll read it and I'll give you that answer. So employment law, this is the time and place to learn about that. Now I'm going to start answering questions. Thank you for joining me. Of course, Lior Samfiru, that's me, the employment lawyer. All right, let's start with questions today. First question on YouTube from Sir. Can I travel outside of the country while I am receiving severance? The answer is yes, absolutely. There's nothing preventing you from traveling while you're receiving severance. There's no issue there. But here's the thing. I'm worried that we're getting a bit of ahead of ourselves, because if we're talking about severance, I hope that you haven't accepted whatever severance the employer offered you, because I don't know anything about your matter. You didn't tell me anything about you or your job, but I can almost guarantee you that whatever it is that you've been offered, whatever that severance is that the employer says they want to pay you, is actually a lot less than what you're owed, than what you're legally owed. In over 90% of cases, whatever the company offers is not even close to being the real amount that the law says you should have. So the first step is not to worry about what happens after you get severance. The first step is to make sure that we agree on proper severance terms. So if you've been offered a severance package, you don't even think about accepting it without calling me first. And hey, listen, if you don't like me, that's okay. Call another employment lawyer. That's fine. But you cannot and should not ever, ever, ever accept that severance offer without getting that legal advice. You are just giving your employer a big fat gift with a bow on top. Don't do that, okay? So hopefully that makes sense, sir. And then any follow-up, I can ask right now, or go to employmentlawyer.ca to connect with me and my team. All right, questions. Let's see. Moon Cheer has a question. Do you have any clients from Quebec? Unfortunately, if you work in Quebec, we cannot help you. You have to get legal advice in Quebec. If you work in if you work in Ontario, maybe you live in Quebec, but if you work in Ontario, we can help you. So the relevant jurisdiction is the jurisdiction where you work, not where you live, not where the company is based out of. It's where you physically do work. If you do work in Ontario, in BC, in Alberta, we can help you. Other provinces, unfortunately, we cannot. And certainly in Quebec, very, very different laws. You'd have to seek legal advice in Quebec. So hopefully that helps, Munshir. Let me know if there's any follow-ups here. Right now, again, if you just joined us, you're wondering, well, what is this all about? I'm Lior Samfiru, the employment lawyer with Samfiru Tumarkin LLP. Why am I here? Well, I'm here to answer your employment law questions live. I'm live right now answering questions. I've been answering. I'm going to continue answering right now, but you have time. Okay, I'm going to encourage you. I'm going to keep encouraging you to ask those questions to make sure that when we're done here today, you've had all your questions answered. That's the name of the game. Okay, Chris Trey has a question on YouTube. Excuse me. How long is an employer required to keep your position if you are on medical leave? So the way it works on medical leave is you remain an employee of the company. Now, the company is allowed to run its business. So if it's required to hire someone to do the job because you're not there and needs someone to do the job, it's allowed to do that. That doesn't mean you're out of work. What happens is this: when you're ready to come back to work, okay, whether it's after a month, after a year, after 2 years, at that point, the company has to make all efforts to bring you back. They have to try to find that old position. If it exists, great. If it doesn't exist, they have to try to find a similar position. If they've done all that, if they've tried and there's just nothing available, then they can let you go with your full severance. So they are allowed to bring someone in to replace you if they have to do that to run their business. But that doesn't mean you're out of a job. If the company, when you're ready to come back to work, if they don't try to find you another position, they don't really care about you, that's a human rights violation. That's illegal. They have to try and make all efforts, and only if there isn't a job, they have to pay you severance. So Chris, hopefully that helps. Any follow-up questions? If something's not clear, you still have time, you can ask right now. I'll be happy to clarify and answer. But beyond that, hopefully that makes sense. Thank you for that question. Very important question. I get asked that fairly often. All right, let's continue. What do you say? I say we do that. Brennan has our next question. I've recently been laid off, and my employer likes to call me an independent contractor. I think I'm an employee. You are. I asked him about collecting EI, but he keeps ducking the question. Not sure what to do. So yes, if you think you're an employee, guess what? You are an employee. So often people are misclassified. Okay, they're misclassified as contractors when they're not, because it's easier for the company to call you a contractor. You're not. So here's what happens. Because you were laid off, you're owed severance. So forget about EI for a second. I'll come back to it. You're owed severance because employees, when they're let go, are owed severance. Now, I don't know how long you've worked there, but that severance could be many months, as much as 2 years pay. Okay, so number one, you are owed severance. Now, number two is, yes, you should be getting EI as well. So to get that, we need to get involved. We can get you the severance that you're owed, and we can also fix the issue so that you can get EI on top of that. Your employer is not going to do that just because you want them to. We have to force the issue. The good news, it's not complicated. Okay, so Brendan, here's the next step. Connect with me and my team to do that. It's very, very easy. The address is on the screen right now, employmentlawyer.ca. Give that to you again, employmentlawyer.ca. Yes, you're an employee. You've been misclassified. You're owed compensation, severance. Maybe there's, by the way, also overtime owed to you, vacation pay owed to you, potentially. So again, to connect with me, employmentlawyer.ca. Let's get you everything that you're owed, Brendan. So looking forward to connecting. All right, great questions today. You see how easy it is, by the way. If you just joined us again, I'm Lior Samfiru, the employment lawyer, live here, answering employment law questions, telling you about your legal rights, educating you about the things that you need to know if you work. Okay, so if you have a question about your legal rights, ask them right now. You have that box on the screen, type it in. You still have plenty of time. You're guaranteed to get an answer, okay? So ask the question. All right, Sean from YouTube has our next question. Let me just pull that up here. My manager said I was too young for a position. Is this ageism or discrimination? Yes, age discrimination happens whether the company thinks you're too young or too old. If your age is a factor, it's discrimination. Okay, it's illegal. That's a human rights violation. The problem, of course, twofold. Number one is proving that that's why you didn't get a job, because the company's not going to admit it. Second issue is, let's assume you can prove it. Do you want to pursue it? Do you want to pursue human rights violation against your employer if you still work there? That's a personal decision. You absolutely can, but you have to decide whether you want to do that. Now, one of the ways to prove that is to simply send your employer, your supervisor, whoever said that, manager, an email saying, yeah, manager, I'm confirming that when we spoke yesterday at 2 o'clock, you told me I can't have that other position because I'm too young, because of my age. So send that email. That confirms it. Now you can, that helps you prove it. But ultimately, you still have to decide whether or not you want to pursue it. That is absolutely age discrimination. It's illegal. It's a human rights violation. Great question. Lots of questions coming in today. I'm so happy. I love it when questions come in, but keep them coming. Not enough. I still want more. Plenty more coming now. Again, I'm Lior Samfiru, the employment lawyer. Connecting with me, by the way, off social media when this camera is not on. So easy to do. You just go to employmentlawyer.ca. Again, employmentlawyer.ca. All right, let's continue answering questions. Moonshir has, I think, another question. Are unionized employees allowed to hire legal counsel on their own if the union does not step in to resolve the workplace issue? No. A unionized employee cannot hire a lawyer to deal with their employer, okay, or former employer. It has to be the union. Only the union is allowed to deal with the employer. And the employee doesn't have rights really in the unionized setting. The union has rights because the union is the one that has the contract with the employer. So what do you do if the union doesn't help you? The only thing you could do is to file a complaint against the union with the labor board, okay? And I don't usually like those complaints only because they almost never succeed. It's very difficult to be successful, but that's the option. Now, so the last point I'll make about this, pretty much anything that you hear me say on this session, or if you hear me on radio or see me on TV, anything I say does not apply to unionized employees, does not. Okay, only applies to non-union employees. Okay, unionized employees, that's labor. What we're talking about here is employment, which applies only to non-union employees. All right, let's continue answering question. Shanae, hopefully I'm pronouncing this correctly. Shanae asks, is there any recourse available to me as a single mother who was laid off without cause? I would have been there for 1 year in April. I got 1 week severance pay. So Shanae, this actually, you absolutely have recourse, but it has nothing to do with the fact that you're a single mother. It's the fact that you're owed more than 1 week's severance. Now, I don't know the type of job that you were doing, and I don't know your age, but you're probably going to be owed anywhere from 2 to 6 months, not weeks, months of severance. So if you got 1 week, that's a wrongful dismissal. Not because you're a single mother, not because we don't like the reason they let you go. They can let you go for most reasons. It's because of the fact that you're owed more than 1 week. So Shanae, now that we know that, the next step, well, you know hopefully what the next step is, you got to connect with me and my team. Let us do what we do, which is to get you the severance that you're owed, a lot more than 1 week. And to connect with me, again, employmentlawyer.ca. Again, employmentlawyer.ca. So Shanae, let's have that conversation. You know how to do that. Connect with me. Looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you. Very good question. By the way, again, I'm going to say this to you right now. If you're looking at a severance package because you were laid off, if you had a severance package in the past, I can almost assure you that whatever you were offered is bad. It's not close. It's not even remotely what the law says you should have. So keep that in mind always. Doesn't matter if you lost your job after 3 months or after 30 years. You're owed likely a lot more than what your employer is offering. Okay, very, very important to remember that. If you've just joined us, you see what's happening here. I'm answering questions. I'm Lior Samfiru, the employment lawyer, here with you, for you, answering employment law questions. And you can connect with me and my team through employmentlawyer.ca. All right. Sherry has our next question. I have received a termination letter for no cause. I did not sign it. Good, smart. I worked there for 2 years, 9 months, offered $3,200, which is 2 weeks plus 2 weeks. Is it a reprisal? I went to the doctor regarding toxic person, filed formal, no follow-up. So first of all, if you filed a complaint, a harassment complaint, and then you were let go, yeah, that's potentially a reprisal. It's illegal. You cannot be fired because you filed a harassment complaint. Even if that's not the only reason, if it's one of the reasons you were let go, Also illegal, can't happen. So I would want to know more, of course, why you were let go, what your employer told you. Was there a bunch of people let go? For example, if 25 people were let go and you're one of them, it may be difficult to say that it's because of the harassment complaint. But if you're the only person and there was no warning, but it's starting to look like it's because of the harassment, right? So that's issue number one. Issue number two, regardless of why you were let go, you're going to be owed more than 4 weeks. Okay. Again, 2 years and 9 months. I don't know your age or the type of job that you did, but you could easily be owed anywhere from 3 to 6 months. Okay. So you were offered a total of 1 month. It should be 3 to 6 months. So you've been wrongfully dismissed regardless of the reason that you were let go. So what you need to do right now, Sherry, is to connect with me and my team ASAP, okay? Time, not really your friend. Let's get this resolved. Let's get you the compensation that you're owed. We need to look at that reprisal, but in any event, it's still a wrongful dismissal. So to connect with me, Sherry, very easy to do, employmentlawyer.ca. Again, employmentlawyer.ca. Fantastic questions, guys. Really, really great questions. So I'm so happy that I have this opportunity to speak to you guys. Let's see. Next question comes to us from Ash. The company I work for is closing the plant I'm at. They have offered me a similar position at another location, but it is 1.5 hours away. If I decline, is that a resignation? So the question is not, is it an hour and a half away from the current job? The question is, how much longer is it going to take you to get there? Because it could be an hour and a half away, but it could actually end up being closer to where you live. But if the new job increases your commute by an hour and a half each way, then if you refuse, that's not a resignation. That's a constructive dismissal, meaning you're owed severance. So usually kind of, to me, the threshold is an hour. If the relocation moves you more than an hour, it's going to take you longer to get there, 1 hour or more. Yeah, we're in constructive dismissal territory, which means if you resign, it's not a resignation, it's a constructive dismissal. But Ash, here's a very important thing. I don't want you to do anything. I don't want you to say yes to them, no to them, I'm leaving, I'm not. I don't want you to do anything until we speak. Okay, I want to understand more about your job. I want to look at your employment agreement. I want to understand when this move is happening. So we need to do this right. So Ash, connecting with me, I've already given that to you. Easy to do, employmentlawyer.ca. Again, employmentlawyer.ca. So we need to do this right, Ash. I don't want you to respond to your company until we speak. Okay, employmentlawyer.ca. Now, I've already been speaking a few times with Shanae, with Cheryl, about severance and how much severance you're owed. If you want to know how much severance you're owed, easy to do. Even if I'm not here, you can still find out in seconds. Here's what you do. You go to pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. You can use your phone, you can use a computer, it doesn't matter. You go to pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. You see that address, pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. When you get there, you click on our severance calculator. First thing you'll see, severance calculator, you click that. That's it. Then you can answer a few questions, and it's going to give you an assessment of how much severance you are owed. Whether it's 2 months, 12 months, 24 months, anything else in between, that's your first way to find out how much you're owed. It's completely free. It's completely anonymous. You don't have to put in your name. You don't have to put your email address. You don't have to put the name of the company that you work for. It's 100% anonymous. And if you want, and only if you want, you can also connect with me directly from that calculator. There's a green button at the end. You can click that, and it's going to connect with me. So pocketemploymentlawyer.ca, use the severance calculator. Whether you work for a company for a month or for 55 years, it works just the same. Check it out. And you'll be surprised, by the way, by just how much severance you're owed. So many people think, oh, I get a week per year. I get 2 weeks per year. No, wrong, false. You're owed a lot more than that. Go to pocketemploymentlawyer.ca, use the severance calculator, check it out for yourself. Even if you're just curious, you've always wondered, hey, what would severance be like for me? Would I get 2 months, 12 months? You know what to do, pocketemploymentlawyer.ca. All right, let's see. Next one comes to us from John. Is a company responsible for benefit payments while employees are on a medical leave? So no, generally speaking, your employer does not have to continue your medical benefits while you're not working. So your benefits are a form of compensation. So just like your employer doesn't have to pay you while you're off. So if you're going to be off for the next 6 months, your employer doesn't have to pay you because you're not working. It's the same with benefits. Now, some employers choose to continue benefits for a while or even indefinitely, and that's great. That's if they want to, of course they can, but they don't have to. They can say, if you're going to be off work, obviously you don't get paid and you're not going to have benefits, but all that continues or resumes while you're back at work. So they can do that. So hopefully that makes sense, John. Any follow-up, you know what to do. You ask. By the way, if you're just joining us right now and wondering what this whole thing is about, well, first of all, welcome. I'm Lior Samfiru, the employment lawyer, and I'm here live answering employment law questions, okay? That's what I'm doing. You can ask your question right now. Make sure you get answered. We still have time. You can still get a question answered, so take advantage. Don't shut off your computer and then say, gosh, I wish I would have known, or I wish I would have asked. No point doing that. Just get your answers. And if you want to connect with me, easy, off social media, employmentlawyer.ca. Okay, let's see. Ash has a follow-up question. Why does everyone think it's 1 week per year if that isn't true? I can't tell you why everyone thinks that, other than to say that it's wrong. It's false. It's not even close to being the case. Now, I started doing hosting a radio show 11, almost 12 years ago now, I guess. And the reason I wanted to do that is because I had to get to a bunch of people when I realized, holy cow, everyone is under this misconception that you're only getting a week per year. We got to fix that. So I started doing a radio show and to reach thousands of people, and then did a TV show and a few TV shows, and now I'm here as well because I need to spread the word. It's not true. So every single day, Ash, every single day, people accept horrible, illegal severance packages because they believe they're owed less than what they're owed. So they work for 3 years. The company offers them 4 weeks, and they think, wow, that's better because I thought I was only going to get 3 weeks. They offered me 4. I'm signing immediately. And they sign never thinking about that, when in fact they probably owed 6 or 8 months, not weeks, months. And this happens every day. And frankly, if a company lets go 10 employees and offers all 10 of them very bad severance packages, 7 or 8 of them are going to accept without even thinking about it, without even realizing that they're owed much more. That's why you got to spread the word. Don't let your friends, your family members, your neighbors do that. You know how many times I get contacted by people that signed off on that severance package? Now they realize they made a mistake, and they say, can you help me? I signed off. I realized I'm owed another year's pay. Please help me. I can't. Once you sign off on that severance offer, that's it. Okay, so very important. Let's do this right. Go to pocketemploymentlawyer.ca if you lost your job. Call me. Okay, again, if you don't like me, that's okay. Call another employment lawyer. But do something other than accepting less than what you are legally owed. So sorry for getting so kind of hyped up about it, but I feel very strongly about it. All right, let's continue getting some questions answered. You got time, okay? Don't be shy now. We got like 5 minutes to go. You still can ask a couple of questions, so let's make sure we get those in. Next question comes from Dean. I recently started a full-time job. Over the last few weeks, my hours have been cut in half. I wouldn't have taken the position if I knew it would be part-time. What are my rights in this situation? So a couple things. Number one, if your employer cuts your hours, in this case, they cut it in half, not legal. So that's a constructive dismissal. If your employer makes a significant change, to the terms of your employment, that's illegal. That's a constructive dismissal. That could be a demotion, a reduction in pay, reduction in hours, a significant relocation. An employer can't do that. So if they do it, if they reduce your pay like in half or reduce your hours in half like they did here with Dean, it gives you the option to consider that a termination of employment and require the company to pay you your full severance. So you can do that in that situation. So that's option number one. The other thing here is this with Dean. Dean, if you're saying that you only accepted this job because it was going to be full-time, this is a misrepresentation. They told you it's going to be a full-time job, and it turns out to be a lie, to be false. Well, what happens in that situation is if you quit another job, So I have a job, but I'm going to quit it because I'm going to take this full-time job. You could be owed additional compensation for the losses that you had. Now, if you were just unemployed in any event, you probably are not owed anything. But if you lost something financially because you accepted this job, this new company can be on the hook for your losses. So that's why it's so important to speak to me, to call me, to email me in that situation. Hopefully that makes sense for you, Dean, and for you as well at home if this applies to you. Very important to keep that in mind. Again, to connect with me, I've said it before, I'm going to give that to you again, employmentlawyer.ca. Again, employmentlawyer.ca. All right, let's see if we can get some more questions answered. Remstyle has a question. My contract has a non-compete clause in it. I work in the tech industry doing sales. Is this something I should be worried about? It will limit my ability to find work. Absolutely, you should be worried about it. And here's why. Because the question is not, is this enforceable? It may be enforceable, it may not. In fact, there's probably a very good chance that it's not enforceable. But that's not the real question. The real question is whether your company is going to try to enforce it. Because if they try to enforce it, they'll sue you if you work for a competitor. And yes, eventually you will win that lawsuit. But it's going to be a long, ugly, expensive lawsuit that could take years and cost you tens of thousands of dollars. So with a non-compete, you have to be very, very careful. If you accept a job with a non-compete and you know that if you have to abide by this non-compete, it's going to be a disaster, don't accept the job, okay? Because you're accepting something that could be a disaster at some point. So the best advice I'm going to give you, Remstyle, is if you're going to leave this company, talk to them. Be nice, and hopefully they'll be nice back and say, listen, company, I'm going to leave, but I want to be able to support my family. So I am going to work for a competitor. I promise not to steal business, not to steal your secrets. I'm going to be a very good boy, but please don't stop me from working somewhere else. A lot of companies are going to be okay with that, but you are taking a risk, okay? That's just the practical reality here, regardless of the legality or the enforceability of the non-competition clause. Again, hopefully that makes sense. If you're having a problem with your employer, Remstyle, again, connect with me through employmentlawyer.ca. All right, let's get the last question of the day from Frank. Can my employer terminate my employment after my employment insurance benefits, and even though I have a doctor's note? So yes, they can't terminate your employment because you're sick. But if it's unrelated to that, let's say it's a big restructuring and you're one of these folks that was affected, yes, they can let you go with severance. They can't let you go because you're sick. That potentially could be a human rights violation. So the context is important. Either way, you're owed severance. But if you're let go because of your medical condition, that's, again, potentially human rights violation, which means you're owed additional damages. So that's how that works. But if you lost your job, regardless of the reason, regardless of the timing, the first thing you do, tell your significant other. Second thing you do is you contact me, okay? And to do that, employmentlawyer.ca. Guys, that's the time I have for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll be back next week. And my colleague Thielen will be back here on Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. He's going to be doing that as well. But don't wait for him. Don't wait for me next week. If you have an issue, contact us today through employmentlawyer.ca. There's a bunch of you here that I already said you got to reach out to me right away. Do that. Again, employmentlawyer.ca. I'm Lior Samfiru, the employment lawyer. Thank you so much for joining me. Always a pleasure to be here, guys. I'll see you all again soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.